The morning begins long before the village awakens. A soft glow of embers flickers inside a small stone bakery, casting warm, dancing shadows across the rough walls and wooden beams. The air is still cold, carrying the quiet bite of night, while silence rests heavily over the sleeping rooftops outside, as if the entire village has paused in time. Only the gentle crackle and soft hiss of burning wood breaks the quiet. A steady, comforting rhythm that fills the empty space like a slow heartbeat in the dark. Inside, the baker moves slowly, without any sense of rush or urgency, as if time itself has learned to slow down within these stone walls. He has done this same routine for years upon years, repeating the same quiet movements so often that they have become a natural part of him, like breathing or walking. His hands remember every step better than his thoughts do, guiding him through the work with quiet certainty, shaping dough, adjusting fire, and preparing bread with a calmness that does not require conscious effort. He pours flour into a worn wooden bowl, watching as it falls in a soft, steady stream, like pale dust drifting through still air under candlelight. Each grain settles gently, forming a quiet mound that carries the weight of countless similar mornings. Water follows, soon after, poured with careful precision, changing the texture as it spreads through the flour, slowly transforming it. Then comes a pinch of salt, small and almost insignificant, yet essential, as every detail in this simple craft holds its own quiet importance. Simple ingredients come together under patient hands, carefully measured and combined, like small, repeated rituals of a peaceful life that has long settled into its own steady rhythm. Outside, the world remains deep in darkness, wrapped in a quiet stillness that stretches across the sleeping village. A few distant sounds drift softly through the air, barely noticeable unless one is paying close attention. A horse shifting its weight in a stable somewhere beyond the narrow streets. The faint creak of old wooden beams bending gently in the wind, and the occasional rustle of leaves moving without urgency. Yet none of these sounds break the calm. They simply exist within it, blending into the silence rather than disturbing it, as if the night itself is carefully holding everything in a peaceful balance. The baker kneads the dough, slowly and steadily, with a calm patience that never seems to fade, pressing, folding, and turning the soft mass beneath his hands in a rhythm that feels almost timeless. Each movement flows into the next without interruption, as if his body already knows the sequence better than his mind ever could, guided by years of repetition and quiet routine. The motion is gentle yet firm, shaping the dough with a steady pressure that rises and falls like a soft tide, repeating itself again and again in a pattern that feels deeply natural. The rhythm becomes almost meditative, filling the silence of the bakery, while each movement mirrors the one before it, as though time itself has grown slower and softer within this peaceful space, allowing everything to exist in a calm, unbroken flow. Hours pass gently, without urgency or interruption, as if time itself has softened and slowed within the warm stone walls of the bakery. The fire in the oven grows stronger, glowing steadily as it breathes life into the space, its heat spreading outward and warming every surface it touches. The rough stone walls begin to hold that warmth, slowly absorbing it, turning the coldness of night into something more comforting and alive. The first loaves begin to bake quietly in the oven, their presence unnoticed at first except for the faint changes in the air, until a soft, steady aroma starts to rise and fill the room. It is a quiet, comforting scent, simple and familiar, carrying the essence of flour, heat, and time working together in harmony. It is the smell of a simple life, unchanged by passing years or shifting seasons, remaining constant like a gentle memory that never fades. As morning slowly arrives, soft light begins to spill through the small window, gently pushing back the last traces of night and filling the bakery with a quiet, pale glow. The village outside starts to awaken little by little, almost hesitantly, as if not yet ready to fully leave behind the calm of sleep. One by one, faint footsteps begin to appear outside, echoing softly along the narrow streets. People leaving their homes, guided by routine and the quiet promise of something warm waiting for them. They are drawn toward the bakery, toward the familiar comfort of fresh bread and the simple rhythm of a new day beginning. The baker moves to the oven and slowly opens the heavy door. A warm wave of heat flows outward, filling the room and briefly pushing back the cool morning air. Inside, golden loaves rest perfectly still, their surfaces gently glowing in the firelight, as if they have been waiting through the night for this exact moment. Nothing rushes. Everything feels settled, complete, and quietly ready for what comes next. He places the freshly baked loaves carefully onto a wooden shelf, arranging them with practiced hands that have repeated this simple task countless times before. The warm bread rests quietly in neat rows, releasing a gentle aroma that slowly spreads through the bakery, blending with the scent of wood smoke and warm stone. For a moment, He pauses to look at them, not with pride or excitement, but with the quiet satisfaction that comes from completing a familiar task well. Outside, the village slowly comes alive as the morning continues to unfold. More footsteps pass along the narrow streets, and distant conversations begin to drift through the air. Voices rise and fall softly, carrying fragments of ordinary life from one corner of the village to another. A cart rolls over the uneven road, its wooden wheels creaking gently. Somewhere nearby, a door opens and closes. The day is beginning, just as it has countless times before. Yet inside the bakery, everything remains calm, steady, and familiar. The thick stone walls seem to hold the quiet within them, creating a small world separate from the growing activity outside. Here, the rhythm of the day is not determined by noise or urgency, but by simple tasks completed one after another with patience and care. This is a life built on routine, a life shaped by repetition, consistency, and the steady passing of days. Each morning begins in much the same way as the one before it. The oven is lit, the dough is prepared, the bread is baked. The same familiar sequence unfolds again and again, creating a sense of order that feels as natural as the changing of the seasons. It is also a life built on patience. Nothing can be rushed. The dough requires time to rise. The fire requires time to grow hot. The bread requires time to bake. Every step follows its own quiet pace, and the baker has long learned to move with that rhythm rather than against it. There is no rush here, no urgency, no pressure to hurry from one task to the next. Instead, there is only the gentle passage of time, moving softly through the bakery like a light breeze drifting through an open doorway. Minutes pass unnoticed. Hours flow together. The day unfolds exactly as it should. The baker begins preparing another batch of dough. He reaches for the flour once more, repeating the familiar motions that have become second nature over the years. The wooden bowl waits upon the table. The ingredients come together once again. The cycle continues, calm and unbroken. Nearby, the fire continues to burn steadily within the oven. Its warm glow flickers softly against the stone walls, while the quiet crackling of wood provides a constant, comforting presence. The heat fills the room, making the bakery feel safe and welcoming, despite the cool air beyond its walls. And the world outside keeps turning. People go about their daily lives. Conversations begin and end. Work is started and completed. The village continues its steady rhythm beneath the morning sky. Yet inside this small bakery, everything remains peaceful. The familiar routines continue without interruption, creating a quiet corner of the world where nothing needs to happen quickly, and where each simple task carries its own quiet sense of purpose. Evening arrives slowly, almost unnoticed at first. The bright energy of the day gradually softens, and a gentle calm settles over the village. The sunlight that once filled the streets now takes on a warmer, golden tone, casting long shadows across the ground and painting the stone buildings in soft shades of amber and gold. Inside the bakery, the changing light stretches across the wooden table. illuminating its worn surface and highlighting the marks left behind by years of daily work. The day's work is nearly finished. The busiest hours have long since passed, and the bakery has grown quieter with each passing moment. The baker carefully places the last loaves onto the wooden shelf, arranging them beside those baked earlier in the day. The familiar tasks that began before sunrise are finally coming to an end, completed with the same patience and care with which they started. A peaceful stillness begins to settle over the room. The air remains warm from the oven, carrying the comforting scent of fresh bread and wood smoke. Nothing needs to be rushed now. The work has been done, and the bakery seems to breathe a quiet sigh of contentment as the evening unfolds. Outside, the village slowly fades into shadows. The narrow streets that were once filled with movement become quieter with every passing minute. One by one, the sounds of daily life begin to disappear. Conversations grow distant and eventually fade away. The creaking of carts becomes less frequent. Footsteps become rare. A few final voices drift through the evening air before silence gradually takes their place. Doors close gently throughout the village. Wooden shutters are pulled across windows. Small points of warm light appear briefly in homes before disappearing one after another as families settle in for the night. The world outside slowly prepares for rest. Inside the bakery, the baker sits for a moment in silence. There is no task demanding his attention, and no reason to hurry. He simply rests, listening to the quiet sounds that remain within the room. The warmth of the bakery surrounds him, familiar and comforting after another ordinary day. Nearby, the fire in the oven begins to dim. The bright flames that burned throughout the day gradually shrink, giving way to glowing embers that flicker softly in the darkness. The crackling becomes quieter, slower, gentler. The heat remains, but it too begins to fade little by little. The shadows inside the bakery grow longer as daylight disappears completely. The room that was once filled with activity now stands peaceful and still. The wooden tables are empty. The tools have been put away. Everything waits quietly for the next morning. And just like every other day, the cycle gently comes to an end. There is something comforting in that repetition. The certainty that tomorrow will begin much the same way. Before dawn, the baker will once again light the fire. Flour will be poured into the bowl. Dough will be kneaded beneath patient hands. Bread will fill the room with its familiar scent. The rhythm of life will continue, exactly as it always has. But for now, the day is finished. Night returns to the village, spreading across the rooftops and narrow streets. The sky darkens above the sleeping world, and a deep sense of calm settles over everything. The bakery rests. The oven glows faintly with its last remaining embers. The village sleeps, and everything becomes still once more.